question for you. When is the last time you went all in on something? I don't mean all in like in the way that we say literally, but we mean figuratively, and all in means sort of in, but like I tried a little harder than usual. I mean all in. Like, I don't care about anything else. I have one focus. I have one direction in this entire world right now, and it is that thing, and I am going to go get it. I went all in on like 3, maybe 4 crushes between 6th and 9th grade before I finally had some friends pull me aside and be like, dude, that is just not how you do that. And I am not going to humiliate myself or others further by using the name of the girls on whom I had crushes, but I just didn't know what to do. And I would blow off everything else and make these grand ovations to be like, I like you and think you're cute. And I would just humiliate myself massively in front of everyone. And for most of my life, I've looked back on those all-in young crush moments. I'm like, oh, you idiot. What were you thinking? Oh, this is why nobody loves you. But then I get to thinking about it a little more recently. I'm like, you know what? Innocent, sweet little Matt Whitman. I like that version of you. I like the version of you that was like, that girl is nice and cute, and I want her to like me back. And so I'm going to try and, again, fail miserably and humiliate myself. A little bit further down the road in life, I loved it when, as a lifelong Denver Broncos fan and my team had never won a Super Bowl, here we are coming down the home stretch against the Green Bay Packers in Super Bowl, whatever that was, and we just got to have this first down. And old man John Elway, who was like 71 at the time that he played in that game, goes rolling out of the pocket, and a bunch of Packers are chasing after him, and the safeties are coming up, and he's going to get drilled. And it's like, slide, dude, go down. They're going to destroy you because of your osteoporosis. And instead, he leaps into the air and gets hit by like 2 separate guys and sandwiched and helicoptered around. And I was just in awe. I was like, he wants this more than anything in the world, because he just sacrificed his entire future of walking to pick up that first down in this game. It was amazing. So I've talked too much about going all in, but you've had time to think about it. Have you thought of an answer to my question? When is the last time you went all in? Nothing else matters. I don't care what it costs me. I have to do this thing. Well, in light of that, as we're looking at Matthew 13, we've got the speech to the crowds half of the kingdom parables discourse that happens with Jesus in the boat and a whole bunch of people gathered around, some people who like him, some people who don't like him, some people who aren't sure. And the all-in language isn't so pronounced there. The language and the themes of the parables Jesus tells there are more generally speaking, here's how the kingdom is going to look. Here's how it's going to play. But then we have this pivot. Jesus leaves the boat. He goes into the house, probably Peter's house in Capernaum, and he starts talking with the disciples, and the parables take on a little different tone. They're a little bit less about big picture, how's the kingdom stuff going to play out, and they're a little bit more about where do you fit and what do you do with it. And yesterday we talked about how the interpretation of the parable of the wheat and the weeds, which is the first thing Jesus and the disciples talk about as soon as they shut the door and say goodbye to the crowds and get into their debriefing, how that parable has tremendous implications for the individual. It gives you a roadmap for what you do in a world where people don't agree with you and don't like you and don't believe in God and don't believe in the Bible and don't believe in your values and have other things that maybe they very deeply believe in. And it gives you some sense of release from needing to control those people and fix everything and wade out into the great wide world with the sickle or the sword to make God things happen. And then the next 2 parables continue that theme of dealing more individually with the kingdom citizen by giving us 2 more back-to-back micro parables that structurally kind of mirror what we saw with the 2 little micro parables in the first half of the speech when Jesus was out in the boat. Remember, we get the mustard seed and the yeast, these 2 little things that permeate and grow up into something much bigger, and it's an image of how the kingdom is going to start small and get bigger. It's an image of how the kingdom looks like it maybe couldn't affect that big a thing because it's so small, but then it works through everything and does affect things. Well, this time around, these 2 micro parables, the one of the hidden treasure and the pearl of great price, are more about the individual response, the individual ability to say that is the most valuable thing, and the individual decision to say I'm going all in completely for this thing that I believe is of greatest value. And so the parables go like this. Verse 44, the kingdom of heaven is like a treasure hidden in a field. When a man found it, he hid it again, and then in his joy went and sold all he had and bought that field. Maybe some of you are realtors and you're like, that's kind of shady. Shouldn't there be some kind of disclosure form or something that I was trespassing on your land? I found the thing. I don't know. I'm not interested in breaking down ancient Near Eastern laws and customs regarding real estate deals. And I don't think that's what Jesus is driving at either here. I think he's already made it abundantly clear that there's a degree of shrewdness that goes with appreciating what the kingdom is about and being a kingdom citizen. Rather, the idea here is maybe this guy was out looking for treasure. Maybe he was just digging a hole for some other reason, but he finds this treasure and he's like, whoa, nothing in the world is worth as much as this. Not the field, not the shovel, not all the money I have. I'm going to bury this thing again, and I don't care what I have to cash out. Take my 401k, take my cars, take my heirlooms, take my jewelry, take my fish taxidermy. I don't actually have much fish taxidermy, but I'm just making things up that are valuable. Take everything. Take my identity. I don't care. I want the thing that I know is buried in that field because it surpasses all other things in value, and I am all in. And then the second little micro parable that has roughly the same gist goes like this. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant looking for fine pearls. When he found one of great value, he went away and sold everything he had and bought it. Okay, you notice both of these parables end the exact same way. Sold all he had and bought that field. Sold everything he had and bought it. But how we get there is a little bit different. In the first one, we don't really know what the guy was doing out there or looking for. He wasn't maybe even sure what treasure he was looking for, but when he saw it, oh, dang, whether I was looking or not. I may not be a smart man, but I know what value is, and he gives up everything to get it. In the second one, this guy is more of an expert. He professionally goes around and looks specifically for fine pearls. And when he finds the pearl of all the pearls, and yes, this has been evoked in great literature many times over, when he finds this thing, nothing else matters. You can have it all. I need that pearl. And part of what I think is interesting here about what we've done with this over the last couple thousand years is that these two little micro parables have cast a very long shadow. People have drawn on this imagery in fairy tales, in cautionary tales, in amazing stories, in superhero origin stories, in Icarus-like stories where people fly too close to the sun. And it's usually presented in such a way that, you want to be careful going all in on that one thing. You might want to hedge your bets a little bit, which is a fascinating thematic departure from what Jesus is driving at here. Because here, the exalted decision, the celebrated decision is, whether you're looking for it or not, if you know what value looks like when you see it, you should be able to do the mental math and be like, I'll cash in everything. I want that. That is of far surpassing value of anything else. You're not flying too close to the sun. You're doing good math, and you are making exactly the right decision. So if Jesus is telling this all-in parable only now that he's inside with people who are already in, we have to assume there's a strategic reason for that. He tells that all-in parable to people who reject him, to people who are in the process of rejecting him casually, kind of a pocket veto, I'm not going to be in kind of situation. Then obviously something this fanatical, this dialed in, this all-encompassing, when he's talking in a natural open-air amphitheater to a big group of people who don't have eyes to see, who don't have that refined Pawn Stars style eye that can tell a diamond in the rough, that can tell something of great value when they see it. You go and say this thing's of great value, and they're like, is it really, though? I mean, isn't it just a bunch of speeches so far and a couple of parlor tricks that I wasn't there to see, but I heard it was pretty cool? I don't know if it's really worth selling out that much for. It's not going to resonate with that crowd. So in keeping with the theme of he who has eyes to see, let him see, ears to hear, let him hear, he saves these parables about the all-surpassing value of the kingdom and the king for people who have eyes to see and have already seen it. In the same way that if you talk to a room full of people who had never heard of football or sports, and you're like, this man who was aging really wanted to take this brown lump and run over that white painted line with it, and he decided that it was worth sacrificing his body to move the brown lump over the white line, all the people would be like, that's idiotic. I would never want to do that or play that game or have that value system. I don't see it. Weird. But if you sit down with a room full of Denver Broncos fans who've yearned for Super Bowl glory for so long, and you explain that, it means so much. And they would have eyes to see how big a deal that was, and they would be doing the same mental math equation in their brains. It's worth it. Go do it. If I could be in your shoes, I would do it. Likewise here, Jesus demonstrates once again his mastery of understanding his audience and saying the stuff to the people that he needs to be saying it to in order for it to make sense. Obviously, these two parables are also here in anticipation of you and me reading it. And it's one of these benchmark places where Matthew kind of checks in and is like, hey, this is something that ultimately you're going to probably have to think through too. This is meant to be compelling to you, and it's meant to make you think from your bird's eye view of whether you want to do the squishy middle or rejection thing, or if you want to do the in thing. And the in thing can be a little scary, because if you keep paying attention and you come to understand the value of this kingdom, the only thing that's going to end up making sense is an all-in proposition. At least that's clearly the way Jesus and Matthew are thinking about it. Thank you again to everybody who's jumped in to support the program at patreon.com/the TMBH podcast. I'm trying to do a thing with a bunch of new people coming in right now where I'm just banging out a note to people to say thanks on the way in the door. I know I have not connected with everyone, but I'm really trying to do that right now with a little larger number of you jumping in to help out with this thing, just to make sure you know that you're not lost in the shuffle, and it really is appreciated. I'm Matt. This is a 10-Minute Bible Hour podcast. Let's do this again soon.